Today's show is sponsored by our friends at orcacoolers.com. And if you want some of the best Roto-Molded coolers, you got to go with Orca. These things are bear-proof. They keep the ice cold for like 5 days. I've done it. I've gone camping. I put the ice in there. 5 days later, it was still good as new. Plus, they have some of the best tumblers you could ever find. They have a Georgia Bulldogs championship tumbler that I just got Zeke for his birthday. Go to orcacoolers.com. Use code DADSEASON because it is dad season year-round. You will get 20% off your order. That is code DADSEASON for 20% off your order at orcacoolers.com. Today's show is also sponsored by our friends at action247.com. And if you want action, get in on the action with our friends at action247.com, Tennessee's only sportsbook by Tennesseans for Tennesseans. The Titans didn't make it in the playoffs, but there will be things. We will announce it later on this week for conference championship promos. And you can also follow them at TN Action 247, Tennessee Action 24/7 on all the social media platforms. And they will have promos of what they're going to have later on this week. The stuff for the NBA, the stuff for college basketball, the stuff for the Australian Open, and of course, the conference championships that will be coming up this weekend in the NFL. So go ahead and use code DADS100. They will match your deposit up to $800 up until the Super Bowl. That's $800 by using code DADS100 at action247.com. You got anything for me, buddy?
I figure at this point, we'll just sit here and be curmudgeons and lament on getting older and more ailments that keep developing.
Ailments?
Yeah, ailments.
Ailments.
No, ale is something you drink.
It's ailments. It begins with an A.
Yeah, ailments. That's what I said.
I didn't know if you were saying elements or helmets.
Well, a helmet wouldn't fit either one of our heads very well. And I don't know why I'll be talking about elements. I'm not worried about the periodic table right now.
I think this is a longer conversation. Let's hit it. Hello, everyone. My name is John Edwards. With me, as always, is Zeke Baker, and together we make the Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, thank you for making us part of your day. We're a little bit worse for wear right now. I have a cold. I've tested. I'm negative. For those of you that are wondering and said, hey, you should take another test, here's what happened. My wife had a cold. My daughter had a cold. They both got tested, rapid and PCR. They were both negative. I have the same exact symptoms as them. My nose is a faucet right now. It will not stop. I apologize for all the people that think I talk nasal anyway. It is amplified times 1,000 today. They had the same exact thing as I had. I rapid tested. I was negative. I'm negative.
Well, I mean, if your nose is like a faucet, it's hypothetical that all the mucus could be masking what the test needs to pick up. I think you should do the swab urethral and see how that works.
You're a pharmacist. I want to know how many people are going to catch what you really said, and we'll get the DMs. We won't explain it. We'll just see. Maybe somebody's going to go back and be like, oh, crap, I got to listen to that section again, but we'll see. I'm going to leave it in there. We'll see.
I enunciated just fine.
You did that one. Ailment you could not get, but you got that one right. Zeke, you are having, ever since you turned 40, Zeke had this thing for the longest time growing up Edwards that, I'm a bull in a china shop and I'm going to get hurt. And my daughter's the same way. That's why she broke her collarbone, because she's an Edwards and she was growing up Edwards. All that kind of stuff. Zeke talked a lot of shit. And ever since he turned 40, he's hurt his shoulder. He's chipped a tooth. What else have you done?
I mean, that's enough shit. Good Lord.
And you were in the dentist chair for 3 hours today with that chipped tooth while your shoulder is still hurting. So you're in the chair in pain because of your shoulder getting your mouth drilled.
Yep. Possibly getting an MRI later this week, depending on how that goes for the shoulder. Let's see. What other fun facts did I have? Oh, apparently I mow through anesthesia, or as the dentist said, chew through it. I don't know. The nurse said after the fact that a normal person or a normal amount is one cartridge, and they had to use 4 on me.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I don't even want to know why that is. Like, are you Michael Jacksoning yourself at home at night?
No, he acted like it was a blood thing. I don't know. You'd think being pharmacy, I'd have a clue, but I legit don't. But he just said I must have a lot of ester in my blood and that I chew through anesthesia.
Well, I know what you're doing tomorrow. You're probably going into work and researching ester and figuring out what's going on.
Some things you just don't want to figure out.
But I mean, this has been a big deal for you. Turning 40, things have changed drastically for you in the health and wellness department.
I mean, I did still manage to have, some boys in town from school for the weekend. We survived. We lived it up pretty big. Nobody hurt anything, et cetera. So there's some minor wins here and there. There's some silver linings.
Now, how did that dog's blend end up? Because I did make an appearance. I did come see you. I brought you your birthday presents. I also had Sophie with me. So there was no way I was going to be able to stick around and do the blend with you. We basically came in, said hi. We took a picture. Sophie started jumping on all the barrels and running around everywhere. And it was like, all right, time to go. Good seeing you.
Oh man, I kept waiting for figuring out ways, some way to just like tap one or get a leaker or something. And just juice go everywhere. I'm like, oh shit.
She was back there running around everywhere. And then obviously she got all the char on her pants. And I was like, oh great. Her mom's going to be like, what happened?
So for the blend, James was nice enough to pull some 5, 7, and 8 year stocks. We tried them all individually, tinkered around with them as far as, trying to see where compatibility and synergy was and whatnot. And ultimately ended up going with a blend of 5 and 7 year barrels. They really seem to just, I guess, cohabitate well. They complement each other well. The 7s are a little more delicate and softer, but really good perfume nose. The 5 has more body, but also it still is, 5. So it's a tad young. So between the two of those things, the 7, body wise, it just rounds out the corners, gives it a nice floral nose. And, it was just, hard to pass up and say, yeah, we could sit here forever and outthink ourselves and waste another hour or two and still be back at square one. This is a damn good drinker. And those are some damn good dogs that want it all. Let's just roll with it.
And what I will say, for that 20 minutes that I was at Nashville Barrel Company, I did have a taste of the 5, the 7, and the 8. The 8 just was a funky outlier. Completely understand why it was thrown out. I like the 5s. I like the 7s for the reasons that Zeke did mention. So even though Zeke is spearheading this blend for Nashville Barrel Company, I can tell you that I was there, I tasted it, and the man's telling the truth.
No lies. No lies.
We don't tell lies. We'd be very honest if I was there and did not taste anything, or if I wasn't there at all. But there was a lot going on this weekend. I feel like we need to talk about this real quick before we get into this Stellum Bourbon and Rye. How about the NFL this weekend, buddy?
Man, knockoff after knockoff after knockoff after almost knockoff. And I mean, all the games were great. I mean, that Chiefs-Bills game, I don't say that doesn't go down as one of the best games in playoffs. What more could you have wanted or needed out of a game? Just jam-packed, boom, 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 scored. Oh, you one up to me? Here we come right back down the field. I mean, it was just wow.
Well, that last 3 minutes of the game, I think there were 3 lead changes, 1 tie. Josh Allen had that amazing touchdown pass up the middle of the field to put the Bills on top by 3. What's Mahomes do? He just goes right down, ties it up like it was nothing. And then as soon as that coin toss went, here's the problem with everything is that you can't do the NFL overtime the way it is. And I know purists are going to say it's the defense's job to stop the offense and it's the offense's job to score. At that point, it's not fair at that point in the season to not let the Bills have a rebuttal on offense to what just happened.
I'll agree in that it is somewhat unfair, but I do like that it's consistent. I would rather there be the same overtime rules for playoffs or regular season, just because remember all the previous years when there was the ties those first few times and nobody seemed to even know that you could tie. So imagine if the playoffs has a different set of overtime rules. What's the likelihood the players really don't know what the hell they are? Well,
and you don't watch this. I know a lot of our listeners do. But it's like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when they have the game Charlie McDennis, the game of games. You go through the whole game and they didn't know how they had made it drunk one day and didn't realize how you won the game. And the last part of the game was to flip a coin. And that's kind of how I feel the NFL playoffs are. Because when it comes down to that point And both offenses were hot at the time because you think about it, the Bills just scored. Chiefs just went and tied it up. Both offenses were riding high. So whoever had it was going to go down and score. So at that point, you're flipping a coin to decide who wins the game.
To a degree. I mean, you never know, but I did think, did you catch it when, not the final drive when the Chiefs tied it up before the overtime, but the one before that the Chiefs had when, Hill just took off and scored. When he blows by the last DB, he just flips the deuce at him as he's running by him. I mean, literally, he just chucked the deuce up like, see you, bud.
Switching gears for a second with the Titans game. I don't know how the Titans can expect to win when you throw an interception to start the game off. Let's talk about the end of the game. You're going to call the quarterback read option 2 plays in a row, and Tannehill won't look at the right to save his life. Both of those plays, he was laser focused on the left, didn't even look down the right side of the field at all, and somebody was open. So
Julio.
I just don't understand what the hell. You have Derrick Henry, you need to get a yard, and you're going to do a pass play?
I've heard rumbles. For some reason, he just doesn't look Julio's way almost ever. I don't pay attention to follow it that close to really know, but I've heard people grumbling. And granted, we were bouncing around town and going to a few spots and tried to catch the game in between as we could. Admittedly, did miss the end of it, but as soon as I saw highlights pop up and you see Tannehill, 3 picks, all you need to. You're not winning a playoff game with 3 picks. Sorry.
No, and Vrabel came from the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots' way is to not turn the ball over. And if you were to tell me that they were going to sack Burrow 9 times and lose the game, I would have been like, you serious? Like, the defense showed up. That was the hardest part watching that game is the D came to play and the offense just shit the bed.
I never got a chance to go back and look at the highlights, but I wondered with Henry coming back, but obviously not being 100%, when he went out, the team changed gears. They got in a different mode. They learned new ways to play and to survive and win. But then with him being back on the field, you just had that mentality and that kind of, olfactory, whatever routine familiarness of Henry's back. This is the football we're going to play. These are the plays we run. This is the style. But then when he can't compete at that level, it almost puts you, behind the 8 ball, so to speak, of like, oh, we were playing Henry style football, but Henry's not quite Henry. And well, what the hell do we do? That's what I wondered.
I still think it was a good idea to activate him because that way the Bengals had to prepare. So even if they were going to prepare that whole week to play the new style Titans football, you had to prepare for Henry. So it was taking reps away from either side. I just think mentally you have to know that there's going to be times you're going to rely on Henry. And then there's going to be times you don't. How do you mentally take yourselves there as the Titans? It just wasn't what we expected to see from them.
I was just glad he didn't get hurt. Let's be honest. That's the biggest thing I worried about was rushing back. Who knows what happens? He gets hurt. They still lose the game. And then now what for next season,
You bring up a good point. The man needs to stay healthy, Zeke Baker. It's going to be an interesting AFC championship with the Chiefs and the Bengals, but I don't think the Bengals have a big shot here anymore.
Hey, any given Sunday.
Now, switching gears to the NFC, how the hell does Tom Brady come back from a 27-3 deficit to then lose the game 30-27? Like that.
Oh, man.
He wanted it bad, too.
I wanted to text you bad, but I couldn't bring myself to that level of assholery on that particular day.
You could have. It would have been okay. I wouldn't have gotten mad at you.
I mean, crazy that they really came back from it. Because I didn't think they were going to. I thought this is, all right, they're not going to do it this time. Because, early on, they just kept tripping over their own feet. And now they're like, all right, everybody keeps saying Brady's going to get it back in. Like, I don't think he is. Oh, then they did. And then the way it all goes down, you're just like, whoa.
I know.
But he got beat up that game.
I know. And he threw over 50 passes in the game. I mean, that's the thing. When you're throwing over 50 passes a game, you're not balanced.
But Fournette had a good game. I didn't see his stat line, but I felt like he had a really damn good game.
Oh, they did. They did. But, I mean, it makes you think, though, if AB was there, would it have put him over?
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I mean, it's a tough game to play.
And last but not least, because everybody, this is going to be one of those episodes. Zeke and I just wanted to shoot the shit a little bit because I'm sick. And let's be honest, my palate is shit today. specifically today. I can't smell. I can't do anything. So when we get down to talking about Stellum, my apologies to Stellum. You're going to have to go with Zeke's notes on this because I can't smell. And we all know that if you can't smell, you can't really do a tasting. So this is where I can provide value. And closing that whole thing out, to have a punt block to put the Niners back into it. Crazy. Aaron Rodgers probably last game as a Packer, most likely.
Yeah, he's got to be done there. I don't see any way he comes back.
I think it's going to come down to a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl. That's what I'm thinking.
Man, Stafford's a Georgia boy, so I like pulling for him. But, he had great composure that last game. At that level, 2 full games in a row, I find it hard to believe there's not going to be just those 1 or 2 moments where he just blatantly throws it to the wrong damn team.
Well, what about if Georgia wins a national championship and Stafford wins a Super Bowl in the same year?
Well, the Braves already took it home too.
I know. It would be all Georgia, all everything.
Just need the Hawks to step it up.
That ain't happening.
All right. I don't think so either.
We're talking about Stellum. Now, Stellum, for those of you that don't know, it's not just mullet spelled backwards. Stellum is a brand that was made by Barrelcraft Spirits, the award-winning independent blender and bottler of unique aged cask-strength source whiskey and rum. Stellum strives to improve the flavor, process, and ideals of traditional American whiskeys. American culture has always been about reaching towards modernity. Stellum looks beyond outdated assumptions of who whiskey drinkers and whiskey makers are to embrace that fundamentally progressive ethos. The launch of Stellum is the result of Barrelcraft Spirits' years of industry-leading innovation in American whiskey. This new project investigates the importance of nuance and micro-differentiation in a pared-down and minimalist setting. Stellum is designed to be clean, straightforward, and remarkably polished. This is whiskey factored down to its most defining essentials, blended and packaged with an eye towards clean lines and definition. So Joe Beatrice is very heavily involved here, as well as the chief whiskey scientist Trip Stimson, chief product innovation officer Will Schragus, and assistant blender Nick Christensen. So all of them get together. They make Stellum. The Stellum Bourbon and Rye both come in at $54.99. However, what Barrel sent us was they now have a black label Bourbon and Rye, comes in at $99, and that is what they sent us here. So it is a blend of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, like we are used to with Barrel. The rye is a 95.5 mixed with some Kentucky rye. We don't know the percentages. So sorry, I got my colors wrong. They sent us a black label of the rye and a blue label of the bourbon. So this bourbon comes in at $55. The rye is going to come in at $99. And I don't know what the ages are, but the bourbon, that's their shelf one. And that's going to be 114.98 proof, 57.49 ABV on the bourbon. This rye comes in at 58.12 ABV, 116.24 proof, and they are both blends, just like I mentioned. Just one is more I have to assume the black is going to be aged a little bit more than the blue. That's just my assumption I'm going off of, though.
You may not have seen or got anything on this, but I'm still at least halfway confused. What's spurred the extra brand or the creating of the new brand inside of Barrel, but what led to the Stellum label? Have you seen anything on that? Because I never did really.
I think it was just adding new SKUs to the Barrel line, but maybe it's coming up with something like where Barrel is very much known for batches. Okay, you have batch 32, 33, 34. Well, Stellum could be something that could be a bigger batch and have more of a shelfer, especially at that $55 price range for the blue label. I'm a little confused, and I know we want to have Joe and some of those folks on, but I'm a little confused at what's the point of the black label? Like the blue label to have a shelfer, I totally get that. The black label, isn't that the same as kind of Barrel at that point?
That's what I would think. Yeah.
The same price.
Does the label have from Barrel Spirits Stellum or anything like that? Or is it still pretty much, incognito?
It's very...
Okay, yeah, so...
It's StellumSpirits.com. It doesn't even say Barrel on it. It just says Stellum Spirits is driven by progress, critical thinking, and above all, attention to detail. We're devoted to bringing American whiskey into the modern age with simple, elegant blends and single barrels selected with care and intention.
almost like one of those things where, the main big brand gets sold off, but then they don't keep the people, so they just do a spin off and, rebrand it under something else, basically, the whole same concept thing.
But I do have to think where it's the importance of nuance and micro differentiation in a pared down and minimalist setting. But there's nothing there in language that really makes me think anything different. Like micro differentiation, isn't that like what they're doing blending anyway? Aren't they just using big words? I'm befuddled.
Yeah, that was my thought. At least the 2 or 3 press releases I saw in various spots when they first launched the brand. I'm like, well, what's the point of it? I mean, I get what it is, but it just seemed like, why confuse versus make things easier?
Let's talk about our friends that we were just at over the weekend, Nashville Barrel Company. So you have their single barrels that are going to be more expensive, but then you have the blends that are the shelfers that are priced relatively well. I kind of feel like Stellum is that, but then why add more SKUs and have a blue label and a black label unless they're setting something up for one of these brands being able to get picked up or sold off, or I don't want to make assumptions and I don't want to be that guy and say something incorrectly. So apologies to Barrel as we're surely speculating like crazy here, but I mean, it is interesting that black label is essentially at the same price of Barrel. I don't understand what's different.
Same here, Bub. But it's not the first time we've been stumped. Probably won't be the last.
And we're not as smart as other people. We understand this. So the way that we're coming at it, we just might not be in the know. What did you think about this blue label bourbon, Zeke Baker?
For the bourbon, the notes that I jotted down on this one, first thing and up front, it's definitely got a strong spice to it. Thought it had a decent viscosity, got fairly creamy, and behind the spice, I was able to pick up some notes of sweetness in there, but there was definitely a lot of the, cinnamon spice up front. On the finish, I didn't get any kind of, char, salty, briny, whatever that kind of makes you pucker up sensation. So I thought it finished pretty clean, but definitely from the minute it hits the tongue until that, back, there's some solid sin kicking on this thing.
I am sipping along with you, even though my input might not be as welcomed by a lot of people right now. But even in the state that my nose and mouth are in right now, it's pop rocks everywhere. That sin is really popping up and almost coming from the bottom and popping at the roof of your mouth. I really do feel like pop rocks.
Yeah, it's got a good bit to it. I wonder if it's not the first time they've obviously blended Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee, but I wonder if some of that Tennessee hit with one of the other two. That's where that, spice is just kicking up real strong.
But you're right. There is a creaminess on the bottom. The bottom of your mouth, it gets coated. The top of your mouth is just tingling.
Yeah, it's there. And I haven't put water with this one, but it's one of those to where I think it would be more enjoyable with a few drops in there to try to knock off how hard that spice just comes in, from the get-go of, it's kind of like remember like Scrappy-Doo from Scooby-Doo?
Yeah.
Just, he comes out swinging every time, just going. I feel like this, from the minute it hits you, like it's popping and going.
But I also think at the price compared to what some other things you could get, we don't know what the age is. At $55, I think it's a good pour. It's not like some of their blends that completely knock my socks off, but for a solid drinker that is a high proof that has some variety and it makes you talk, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, like I said, I would assume there's some youth in here, and especially here lately on a fair amount, at least of younger cask strength products. I've definitely got to where I'm, subduing them a little bit, throwing a little bit of water in there here and whatnot, and making it just much more of an easier sipper. I did have down as a random sidebar for Secret Santa, one of the groups I'm in. Somebody sent me an old barrel batch 6. Delicious. It was good.
I think I had the 6B and I just killed it a few months ago. That was really, really good.
Whoever blended and laid that thing down. I don't think anybody's going to find one of those on the shelves at this point, but just did want to give a shout out that that was a nice throwback and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
What did you think about the rye here? This is the Premium Stellum Rye.
On the rye, I definitely got green Starbrights. I know I've used that in the past on some various stuff, but that was definitely the first thing I thought of in between the mint and the rye, but also kind of like a wintergreen, and then it's really cooling and creaminess kind of thing, followed by mint. Cinnamon definitely rises up toward the middle. The viscosity wasn't anything overwhelming. Towards the back, it finishes off with heat and cinnamon again, but no hug, nothing, going down beyond that. But the front end to me was the most enjoyable part when that, green starbright kind of note hit for me.
In my limited capacity tonight, what I would say is I think this has a nice blend of the 95.5 with the other ryes, where it's not tilting the scale too much one way or the other. So I think it's a great in-betweener that, for someone like me that is swearing off 95.5, it's in the middle. Like, it's not 95.5 because it's a blend and that 95.5 goes away, but there's the hint of the mint and the wintergreen and the pine, but at the same time you're getting that corn from the Kentucky rye. And it's just everything's muted enough that it all plays well in the sandbox together to where one isn't dominating.
Yeah, I think this time of year it fits as a wintertime rye towards the back when that heat really kicks up toward the mid to back third of the palate. Although I think for me personally, I would probably like a little more of that corn influence, a little bit sweeter, a little bit creamier, and dialing off the heat a little bit just to make it a nice, good sit there and mellow out kind of pour.
I could see that. Well, what's your final verdict on this rye, Zeke?
I think end of the day, I'm pretty much in the same boat as I was with the bourbon in that there's attributes to it I like, but I think both of these, I'm not necessarily going to say the proof is too high, but they just come across as a little too much and could use a little polishing or refinement or simply water. And I think, honestly, both of these, if I had them in my glass neat, I'm just immediately going to go ahead and put water in them at this point and try and dial it back at least a notch or two just to make it more of a, again, subtle, mellow, easier pour, so to speak.
And I'll always say that I enjoy having it be higher proof and let me proof it to where I need it to be rather than having it be too low a proof and then being stuck. I think your point is valid. I think there's going to be some people that want it to be dialed in right from the start. What I would argue against that is, like Zeke and I have told people many times, we have opposite palates. So what I think is hot, he thinks is sweet. And what he thinks is sweet, I think is hot. And I was actually talking to somebody about this at a bottle share on Saturday night. And I was like, Zeke and I have, now this person has your palate, Zeke. My friend TJ, shout out to TJ, but he was saying that, he kind of aligns with you more. And I was like, yeah, I get it, because everybody's different. There's going to be some people that say, Zeke thought it was sweet. I thought it was hot as shit. But the beauty about us and what he was saying about our picks, and it was a huge compliment. So thank you for this. But I always do say that because we have separate palates, when we meet in the middle, we know we're going to have a good pick. And he was saying it's that when we dial it in and when we do a pick, it's a little bit of everything, but it's not too much of one thing. And it's like dialed in exactly where it's going to hit all aspects of the palate. And I'm like, yeah, that's because when opposites attract and we get in the middle, like you're going to get, it's not going to swing too far one way. I think this has potential, especially with the rye for me, to dial it in with a little bit of water. The question is, at $100, do I want to do that? But you also run the risk if you put too much water in, you're going to get your palate or my palate. And then so half the people are going to be, I'm with Zeke on this or I'm with John on this. And I don't even know if I'm making sense anymore. And if I'm rambling, I apologize. I've been drinking that Tussin. But I think there's something to be said about the problem with putting a proof on it is you might alienate half the people from and you have to put a proof, but it's going to lean towards somebody's palate more.
Yeah. And again, I don't feel like it's necessarily a proof issue. It's just the proof that this is coming in at. To me, it's just a little too brash and it could be dialed back some. And at least on the rye as well, granted, age-stated rye, and especially even 95.5 is getting less and less common and somewhat more and more expensive, but it is out there. And at $100, I think I would be more apt to drop the coin on one of those, age-stated 95.5s that's 8 or 9 years old. It's going to, be a little more rounded out, a little more mellowed, The corners are nice and polished off, and you get again, just kind of the slow, laid back, easy sipping profile.
So you think this is hurting itself by not having an age statement on it?
It has nothing to do with having an age statement on it per se. I think that this also has younger juice in it. It may have some old stuff as well, and that's what's moving the needle of the profile versus, say, an 8 or 9 year 95.5 by itself. That at cask strength is just more subtle in nature to me.
I can get that.
I mean, plenty of flavors, but also it's not as, loud, brash, and again, kind of like Scrappy Doo just coming out swinging.
Fair enough. We thank Barrelcraft Spirits for sending us these whiskeys. I think I am a solid in on the blue labels. The black labels, I'm just a little bit more trying to figure out, because the black labels
is a lot.
Yeah, but at that point, you can get a barrel, single barrel, or you can get a really good batch from Barrel. I don't know if the Stellum Black, I want to have them on and interview them and ask them at the end of the day what the difference is.
Yeah, because a few of those batches we've had recently, there were some ringers in there, I thought. I can't remember the numbers, but more than one that was in the 20s. You and I both just like, whoo, all right. Got any more of this over here?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We definitely felt that way. So we had some great ones in there. So I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Hey, it's a diverse profile to appeal to diverse palates.
100%. All right, my friend. They can find us on Facebook at Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Twitter at Bourbon Dads, Instagram at Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Please leave us an open, honest review like we leave open, honest reviews about the whiskey we drink. Where else can the folks find us, buddy?
I'll be out and about being ambitious. I got a feeling you're going to be on the sofa for a couple of days.
I might have to take a day off.
Uh-oh. Look out.
Cheers.
Ciao.